Hey YouTube fam, this is your girl Anim Awe again, and today I am on location, but I wanted to finally share my story about Headway and me. If you are a therapist, you've more than likely heard about Headway. Headway is essentially a third-party platform that takes the sort of headaches away from us therapists. And by headaches, I mean the billing, the credentialing. So the idea is that they help support all of therapists on their in their group practice or in their group network. They support with the credentialing and the billing, and so they ease the stress of those everyday mundane tasks. And so I signed up about 3 years ago, and I thought I was doing myself a service, but what happened, and stick through to the end. This is going to be interesting, and I'm starting to find out more that more people have had this experience, and that's actually a big red flag and something to be very mindful of if this is the route that you decide to go on. So I did use Headway. I originally used it or sought out Headway because I had a group practice at the time, and they had reassured me that they were going to be able to credential my group practice. And the first red flag was that after we went through the process, they later came back and said that they wouldn't be able to credential my pre-licensed folks. So like my ASWs, my LMSWs, my APCs, those folks who were working under my license still. And so that was a headache. We figured it out. I basically ended up, myself and the other independently licensed individual that was in my practice, we paneled with them and they went ahead and did their thing. So things are going okay for the most part. No concerns after the original being misquoted and stating that they would be able to, contract my group practice. Aside from that, we didn't have any problems. Time goes on, no issues. We're billing, no real problems. The reimbursement rates are pretty good. I think that's another way that they entice people. So like you're getting like 140 for a master level clinicians for like a 90837, which is pretty much really good. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, we're not able to get those prices ourselves, and so continue to move forward with the process, no issues. And then about this time last year, around March actually, I get a random message on LinkedIn from a woman that I had never heard of, never worked with a day in my life. And she wrote me on LinkedIn. She's like, hey, before I blast you on LinkedIn, like verbatim, I want to know why you're billing for services under my name. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know you. Like, I'm just like, what is your full name? Like, let me check in my EHR system real quick to see if maybe you're somebody I worked with in the past and, we closed your case or whatever. And so she gave me her full name. I went to go look it up, and I'm just like, yeah, you're not in my system. You're not in my database. Like, I've never worked with you before. I don't know what this is about. And she's just like, well, you're billing for me in your practice in Beverly Hills, California. I'm just like, I don't have an office in Beverly Hills, California. Like, I am licensed in California, but I've never had an office in Beverly Hills. And she's just like, I'm going to send you the bills. I'm just like, yeah, go ahead and email them to me. I would love to see that. And so lo and behold, she sends me the bills, and she sends me about 6 different claims. And each one of these claims, I have I think there were two 90971s, right? Those are the initial intakes. And then there were 3 90837s. The 90971s, Headway was billing her insurance at that time $335.47. Now, bear in mind, I said earlier that master level professionals are getting about 140. If that, we might be seeing about 40% of what they're billing for. And so Headway is able to negotiate substantially larger numbers than we as private practice clinicians could ever do. And I don't know if that's because, and this is all alleged, I have no information to support this, but I don't know if they have some sort of deal with the insurance companies that gives them more leverage, it gives them more power, it gives them more asking power around the reimbursement rates. But $335.47 was what they were billing for a 90971 for a licensed clinical social worker, me. And keep in mind also, I've never seen this person. So there were multiple claims that they had billed under my name, their MPI, under their office for this specific individual. And so of course, I got alarmed. I'm just like, this is actually really scary. I don't know what's going on. So I reach out to Headway. And of course, if you've ever interacted with Headway, then you know that they have probably the worst customer service. You can never get a hold of anybody, can't talk to anybody. It's just like the worst situation ever. And so I'm going on days and days. This lady, meanwhile, thankfully, she didn't blast me on LinkedIn. She got to understand that like I was like genuinely just as confused as she was. Like I didn't know what was going on, and I would constantly give her any updates that I got. And so I would encourage her also to reach out to the customers line, right, to reach out to those reps as well, right? I'm reaching out from the provider perspective, and I encourage her to reach out from the customer perspective. And so I got to know her a little bit through this process. Like she was in Texas. These claims were from back in 2021. I wasn't even licensed in Texas at that time. And so it's all these things and these red flags continuously popping up. And I'm just like, and I'm telling her, like, hey, I wasn't even licensed in Texas. This is absolutely insane. Yes, I am paneled with Headway, but like at that time, I wasn't seeing people in Texas. At that time, I definitely wasn't seeing people in person, in Beverly Hills, because I don't have an office there. I never had an office there. And so we're going through that process, and finally we get a message from Headway. It's like this vague response that didn't really like address the issue at hand. And I'm just like, I followed up. I'm just like, this is pretty serious. Like, I don't know why you all are taking this so lightly, but I need somebody to communicate with me and her like as soon as possible. And so literally about 3 weeks goes by. At that point, I'm frustrated. I'm consulting an attorney to kind of figure out what's going on here. What are we looking at? And so I spoke to the attorney, and he felt like it may have been a mistake. Reach out to them, and if they don't say anything, then contact me back. And then I also went into some Facebook groups, because naturally you go into Facebook groups, and then I went into the Headway group. Those people are, for lack of a better term, they love Headway, and they will stick by Headway by any means. They are aligned to them. And so I wrote something in the group just like, hey, this something strange is going on. I'm getting, somebody reached out to me, all these fake claims being built underneath my name. Does anybody have any idea what's going on? And so they basically berated me to the point where you're overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about. Just ask. I'm just like, I've been asking. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't got any answers. And so I ended up leaving that group because, like I said, those people, it's almost like cult-like. And so I had to excuse myself from that group because it just wasn't helpful. And it's just like, I felt like they were gaslighting me. And I'm just like, I know what's going on. I know what I'm dealing with. I know what I'm feeling. And I just don't need that right now. So they were unhelpful. And so the attorney, like I said, did mention that it could be a possible mistake. Let's wait back to hear from them. So through all this, I'm still keeping the individual that her name was billed under. I'm, keeping her abreast into like what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, what's going on, any updates that I'm getting on my end. And finally, 3 weeks later, Headway books a call with me. And so I tell them what's going on. I tell them what's happening. And they're just like very nonchalant, like, okay, yeah, we'll fix it right up. And so about in total, I think 2.5 months go by. And they write a message to me saying like, oh, we've taken care and rectified everything. Thank you for your time. And so I forward it over to the lady because, of course, again, I want to keep her up to date with everything that's going on. And she's just like, oh, thank you. I'm so sorry that I scared you like that. And I'm like, it's no problem. Like, I needed to be aware of what's going on. And so my guess right now, it's resolved. They didn't send us the claims or the rebuild claims because they said for HIPAA purposes, even though they've already violated HIPAA multiple times by doing what they did initially. So all that to say is this. I think we have to be very mindful. I've talked about this before in my mental health report card podcast. We have to be very mindful about some of these third-party platforms. While we think it could be helpful in many ways, and it can help reduce some of the anxieties. It can help reduce some of the sort of workload that comes with a lot of this work and running a practice. We have to be mindful because our data we're essentially giving it and putting it into other people's hands, right? Our MPIs, our social security number, all these things that go back to you or me as an individual and put me at a risk for, potential fraud, potential other liabilities. We're putting all that in somebody else's hand. And so being mindful about how you use these things and how you interact, and, keep an eye out on some of these things. Ask to meet with some of these, reps as often as possible, just so that you can make sure no funny business is happening. Had that lady not reached out to me, who knows? And even still now, who knows what else is going on underneath my name, right? And so it's really interesting to see the development of all these platforms. Like, as they are well intended, sometimes that's not actually the impact. And that was my direct experience. So I say all that to say this: you have to be mindful of these companies. You got to do your due diligence. And even if you do your due diligence, you still don't necessarily know or have all the answers. But a lot of these things that I think we can feel like are overwhelming or burdensome, and that's why we kind of look to these companies, we can lean on each other as fellow therapists, as fellow practice owners, as fellow group practice owners. Like, lean into the community to ask these questions so that we can support each other. Because a lot of it's about gaps in knowledges, right? And we can help fill that, right? So that we don't become codependent on these companies, right? And essentially they get rich off of the work that we do. Because I told you, right? $335.47. We don't even see half of that, right? So bear in mind, that's how much they're making off our own labor. And so we deserve that money, not them, and not the other way around. And so keep that in mind next time you think about Headway. And I would love to answer any questions, anything I didn't hit on, anything you're curious about, let me know below. Of course, this is my experience. I am also seeing and noticing that this is a story that's reoccurring, and I'm seeing more and more pop up. That's why I wanted to make this video, to share my experience about it. So until next time, take care.